Hi there everyone, it's Laura and welcome to Take Charge Thursday. Believe it or not, this is my 20th installment. We've been doing these for nearly 5 months and I hope that you've been getting a lot out of it and creating with a lot of your stash. So this week's Take Charge Thursday is an absolutely brilliant idea. I've used it on the cards that I'm going to teach you today, but you can take this concept and even add it into your scrapbooking. So without further ado, let's get it going. Okay, so you will need cards and envelopes for this, of course. And then what you need is you need a piece of white daisy cardstock here. And this is cut at 5 1/4 by 4 inches. And this is what we're going to stick little tiny square tiles too. So the way I've done this is I actually just use my ruler from corner to corner and I just draw a small black line in the center, and then I'm going to do it on the other opposite corners. And the reason why I do this is I want to find the actual center of my card front. I want to place my first square directly in the center so that when I put my topping over it with the hole cut out, it's very centralized and it just makes it really aesthetic to the eyes, okay? And now that I've done that, hopefully you've got a grid ruler like this because it just makes it way easier. I'm going to actually now do the alternate lines, the cross line up and down. So I'm actually just lining my grid up along the top here like so, and making sure it's straight, making sure my grid's straight there, and I'm going to draw another line through the center there. And then I'm going to flip this around and I'm going to line this up as well using my grid. It just takes away that need to actually measure for the center of the card, and the grid rulers are amazing. Okay, so now I've got my starting point. All of this is going to be covered by our squares, and so you're not going to actually see this in the card at all. So it doesn't even matter if you go all the way, but you really only need the center. Then the best thing to do next is actually to stick it onto a card. And for me, I'm just going to grab a normal standard close to my heart value pack card and envelope, and I'm going to just place that and stick that directly in the center. Okay, it just makes for the next position really easy. I'd already drawn it on the back, but I wanted to show you guys how to do it. Right, so I'm just going to stick that here in the center. Then you need to choose a die cut. So you're going to cut yourself out a piece of cardstock which is the exact same size as the card front, which is 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. So it's going to cover the entire card front. And you need to choose a die cut. So as you can see, I've cut out a circle here. This one I've actually cut out a butterfly, and this one's a scalloped circle. Okay, so go through your stash of die cuts or thin cuts, and let me just show you. So this circle here has come from the Close to My Heart shaker circle set. So this here is meant to be the circle that holds in the shaker. Okay, and then the scallop one is actually a tag. So it really doesn't matter what the inside of the die cut is. It doesn't matter if it's a tag, because we're actually not working with what we cut out, we're working with what's left there. So no one's actually going to know that this shape here was a tag, because we're using what's called the negative space. I'm not using the positive space. The same goes for the butterfly. So it's actually a really intricate die cut with all the bits cut out and so forth, but I'm using the negative space and not the positive space. So make sure you go through all of your die cuts and just have a look at what's quite large, you know, because you want it to give you a lot of space to see all those squares. So the hexagon would be great. And another really fun one is a star. So I'm going to do the star today's sample, and so with this particular star, I just want it slightly to the top of the card. I don't want it dead center. It's nice if it's offset and on a little bit of an angle instead of dead straight. Okay, so I'm just going to take that and run it through my die cutting machine and end up with a result like this. So now you can see this here is where I'm going to see all my squares. So if you get a shape like this, it's quite easy to just draw yourself a little bit of a diagram so you know where your squares are going to go. And again, you're not going to see any of this, okay? But basically what that does for me now is that helps me know where my squares need to go, so I don't you know, fill this whole card front with squares unnecessarily. Okay, so now what I can do is actually just run my tape over that section, which eliminates me needing to try and put tape on all them tiny little squares. Okay, so can you see that there? I've just filled it in with adhesive. Right, squares, they are 3/4 of an inch squares, so 3/4 by 3/4. Yes, they are very little. The reason why they're little is because we want to pack in as much colour inside that area. So if we made them much bigger, we would get far less squares. Okay, you could even go down to 1/2 of an inch if you wanted, but 3/4 is quite nice to work with. Then I'm going to take this first square, and what I'm going to do is line the points up on the cross section. So not the diagonal one, but the cross one. So I'm going to make sure I've got a point on every one of those lines. Okay, and that is where I'm going to start. So then I'm just going to place a square on either side of that initial starting point. Then I'm going to grab another square, and I'm going to make it so that half goes over this, half goes over that, so it's in the cross center. Okay, so it's offset. It's offset. Okay, and basically now that it's offset, I can just follow the pattern. Right, and so of course we're going to go out past our lines so that when it goes over the top, we will not see any white. Okay, so once you've got that pattern, so see even this point up here, I'm still going to need to go up above that line. Right, let's continue with offsetting on this side now. And if you're not certain if it's covered where you need to, just bring in your template and just make sure. Okay, so for example, I've got a tiny piece just here. It's like really tiny. So I'll just put a little bit of adhesive here, and then I'll actually take one of my squares and just cut it in half and just place a triangular piece in there, and then just check that, and sure enough, now I filled in that little hole. Perfect. And then I just need to offset one here, but that offset means I actually still need to place another piece next to it. So I haven't even used any of my cherries. I'm just going to cut a square in half and just place that over like so. Pop a cherry in here. Well, that sounded a bit awkward. Pop a cherry. Sorry. Okay. Double checking where I'm at. Beautiful. So these 2 points are well covered. That point over there, oh my gosh, there's this tiny bit just here. So I'm just going to put a bit of adhesive there, and I'm just literally going to throw a little bit of this yellow in just to make sure I cover that gap. So it is not an exact science, but as you do it, you'll come to know how it works. And if you've been crafting with me for a while, you know that I'm all for not having to use up too much of my product. You know, I'm not cheap, I'm just frugal. All right, just gonna put a little bit of tape in here. Pop this one in here. So I've got 5 different color squares. I think 5 is probably the minimum you want. If you go less than 5, it becomes awkward. You don't get enough color range. So you definitely want to have a few colors. Let's fill that one in there. I think I'm almost there. So I just have to do, let me just hold it over the top, this piece here and one little corner here. Okay, so let me just run some tape up here, and I had to just do this little corner here. So I'm just going to offset this one. Just going to cut it in half and just fill that across the 2 there. Yep, that filled in that little section. Perfect. Put a blue piece here and floral piece here. I have a feeling I just need to put a tiny piece here, so I'm just going to, what am I going to put there? Oh, I'll put this blue piece here. I need to put some tape though. Alright, so as you can see, you're just filling in the card front, but I'm just making sure I don't overuse anything. Alright, look how amazing that looks. Right, but what really finishes it off is the bit of journal pen work, okay? As you can see, just adding that little pop of black with the journal pen totally lifts up the front of the card to how it looks. So around the outside edge of my shape, the negative space, I simply just do some stitching, or you could draw the lines with the dots, or you could just do dots. You do whatever you are most comfortable with, just to outline the edge of that shape to give it really great definition, okay? So hopefully I can do this fairly fast, not hold up your time too much. But are you already imagining all your little scrap pieces of paper, your favorite pieces of paper, because it really doesn't take a lot, but it has such an impact on this particular project. Now I have done this on a scrapbook layout. What I did was I just created a piece of white cardstock and I cut it at 4.5 inches wide by 12 inches so that it was a border, and then I just cut out numerous hexagons down the length of that 12.5, and then I just created, what I did was I laid the border onto my scrapbook page, and I just did that sort of tracing so I knew exactly where they were going to be, and then I just did exactly what I just did on the card. So very simple. I will pull it out and quickly show you in a second. Right, now for this one I actually did use a ruler. I wanted it really nice and straight. Rather than trying to make it perfect measurements, what I did was I'm just drawing a line, but I'm not going all the way to the edge of my cardstock. So I'm leaving a little white gap, and I'm just eyeballing roughly the same distance from the edges of the card to my ruler. So I did the top and bottom first, and then I just draw a line between, but I don't make the line actually meet up. I leave a gap, okay? Just try and make things simple, not too complicated, so that we feel confident, and we also are not using up a lot of time unnecessarily. Okay, so look at that. Look at that now over the top. It just really gives that shape definition and really makes it pop. And then basically what I need to do now is just adhere this to my card. So I'm just using thin 3D foam tape and taking my 1/4 inch wide one, and I'm cutting that in half because I need this to go all the way around the card. And I also need to just give it a little bit around the edges of the star to make sure it doesn't sag in that section. Let me move that out of the way. So I want my 3D foam tape to go a little bit further. I don't want to be spending all my crafting money on 3D foam tape. I'd rather be buying more pretty paper, you know, to put in my stash. But also I would like to be able to afford to buy extra die cut shapes and things like that over purchasing 3D foam tape. Alright, so getting all the way around, and then like I said, I will just need to do a little bit around the star as well. So the Close to My Heart micro tip scissors, absolutely, because they've got that Teflon coating, that non-stick coating, make it possible to cut this foam tape easily, you know, and not get stuck on the stickiness of it. Okay, and then I'm just going to place a few pieces around the outside of the star just to prevent sagging. Alright, so I'm not perfect and I'm not neat. You don't see the back of a card. Well, you don't see this part. This is stuck down to the card, okay? So I'm not precise. just enough to stop it from sagging. That will do. All right, go through and pull off all my tape. Well, the backing of my tape, should I say. And don't want to pull the tape off because we want it there to do its job. Almost there. Once you get into the swing of creating these, it's actually a little bit addictive. You want to see what all the different shapes look like. That's why I went and found different shapes and created different shapes. And for this, I'm actually going to open my card and then just lay this down in my bottom left corner, and then I can swivel that around and make sure it's square, and then stick it on down. And just that little bit of lift gives it a nice shadow, and that's what really makes it really defined. And now all I need to do is just give it, you know, a sentiment and a bit of a decoration, whatever it needs just to finish it off. I'm not going to go through that with you guys because all you need is just a small decoration and a sentiment. They can go different places on the actual design. So I mean, I've got this one in the left corner, I've got that one in the right corner. I actually haven't even stamped anything, I've just used a die cut on this one. So just experiment, go into your stash, go into your stamp sets, go into your die cuts. A couple extra little stars would look really cute on this, with maybe a you've done it or just you're a star, whatever. Okay, so that, my friends, is today's Take Charge Thursday. And just before we disappear, I'll quickly show you the scrapbook layout, just so that you can see that you can take this particular layout, and it helps if I grab the correct album. You can get the layout and the design and add it to a layout. So let me just quickly find it. Should have had it ready, sorry. Here we go. So as you can see there, let me see if I can zoom out for you. Okay, I've done it all the way down this border. So I've got a 4.5 inch by 12 inch piece, and I've actually stuck all of these squares directly to my white backing scrapbook page. Okay, and I still did the lines around the side, and instead of going all the way around because it's not a card front, I just did stitching on the side pieces. So my friends, that is Take Charge Thursday number 20. Thanks guys, bye.